everybody. I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about Gen X's favorite apocalypse, and this is Volume 7, Civil War. Now, a lot of times in the present, people think about Civil War, and because of our last Civil War, people automatically go to race. Because that Civil War was fought over the slaves and stuff, so people automatically go to race when they think of Civil War. They think of like race wars, just people of different races fighting in the streets against each other for whatever reason. But that, honestly, that would just be like some kind of societal meltdown in a race war or something, or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what you would call that scenario. An actual civil war would be where a group of states seceded and went to war against the federal government. That would be a civil war. That's what happened back during the Civil War. So let's say that the government mandated that we wear paper on our faces and get boosters or whatever in order to go to public places, or we had to shut into our houses or something, okay? Now, here in Florida, last time that happened, we just didn't follow that. None of that stuff was mandated. It was pretty much life as normal. Now, individual businesses would require you to do some things. I had an experience with a doctor's office, and they told me I had to have a mask on, and I just told them I didn't have one. If you want to provide one for me, I'll wear it. Okay, but I'm not gonna go to the store and go buy one. So the gal behind the counter got all offended and shitty with me, but she pulled out a mask and gave it to me. So that's how it was in Florida. They didn't restrict all kinds of stuff through law, and the government didn't intervene. If you wanted to have some kind of restriction in your business, you could. If you didn't, no big deal. If you didn't want your employees coming to work unless they were vaccinated, fine. If you didn't want to tell your employees that, fine, whatever. I don't really know of anybody who had to get the shot to go to work to be able to be employed here in Florida. I'm sure it happened. I'm just not aware of it personally. So let's say that the government, the federal government, did that. They mandated that, right? And you had a couple of states like Florida and Texas, and they just bucked and said, no, we're not doing it. All right? And so then the federal government, they would be in a position, and they were last time, they were in a position where, what do? Do we just let the states operate the way they're supposed to operate and have the freedom to do what they want to do? Or do we try to force them to pass these mandates onto the population like we want? If they did that, if the federal government took that next step and sent military in, or sent, cut off government funding or something like that, then that would take it to the next level, right? Which would, cutting off the government funding, the federal funding, would probably be the first step. The last step would be sending in the federal military. But it would escalate from there. If they did that, and then say there were some other states that had the same principles as like Florida and Texas, so then they would join Florida and Texas, say Utah or whoever, or Alaska, whatever. You'd have other states join and say, no, this is wrong what you're doing. You shouldn't be punishing United States citizens for claiming their freedom. So you shouldn't be doing this. We stand with Florida and Texas. So then all these other states would start jumping ship and going and siding with the states that bucked in the first place. So then you'd have a group of states that bucked, right? I say New Mexico and Montana or whoever. You'd have a group of states that were bucking against the system. And eventually, if it escalated far enough, then those states would secede. And they would say, no, we're not doing this. And then there would be actual war between those states and the federal government. That's a civil war. Interstate travel would be restricted. You wouldn't be able to come to Florida to vacation. No snowbirds down here for the winter. That kind of stuff would be eliminated. And states would probably be limited to their trade. Their trade. They would have embargoes placed on them and stuff, and that kind of thing. And if it came down to that, and there would be civil war, then there'd be, UN troops would probably be over here. That would probably definitely happen. There'd be UN troops over here, blue helmets, marching up and down the streets. That would definitely be a Red Dawn scenario for a lot of states, or whichever ones seceded. For a lot of states who wanted to remain free and retain their autonomy, because that is how the United States was originally set up to be. Each state was its own little nation, but our federal government has grown and gotten so much power. Its tentacles have reached out and taken power away from the states in education, in medical, in all these different areas, and gotten so much control that now we see ourselves as one big country. We don't even realize that the states are supposed to be their own separate little nations. That's why it's in the name, the United States. We're states, but we're united as a country, but our states are supposed to be individual little nations. But that was the original plan, and to keep the government small and down close to the population so we govern ourselves. But as I said, the federal government has taken over, and that wasn't the original plan. We weren't supposed to identify as United States citizens and then identify as Floridians. We were supposed to identify as Floridians and then United States citizens. So that's just kind of been inverted with the bloating and corruption of the federal government. And a lot of state governments, I can't leave that. A lot of state governments have done the same thing from their level. They're bloated, corrupt, and they're reaching down into townships and county and parish organizations and exerting power down below them. It's a far-reaching effect where governors are acting like kings and just passing these crazy laws, right? And enforcing their authority upon individual citizens. None of that stuff was supposed to happen. All of this is way beyond what our founding fathers envisioned for our country. But back to the Civil War thing, that would be a tough one, because also in the beginning I think, in my opinion, you'd have a lot of migration. You'd have a lot of patriots migrating to these seceded states, and a lot of scared people would migrate out to the government, to the federal controlled states. So there'd be a big swap in population right off the bat, right when it first kicked off. And then after that would just be, it would be a long war, I think, unless they just came in and the UN and the federal government just carpet bombed, which would be possible, I guess. But if it was just straight up infantry, trying to take ground from each other and that, then it would be long and drawn out. Because I know even down here in Florida, there are people back there in the woods that they'd be decades digging them out of there. People up in the hills, they'd be up in the mountains and the hills, they'd just be decades digging those folks out of there, and out of urban centers. There were populations, patriots in there. It'd be hard to root them out of those cities. So it'd take a long time. It'd be a long, drawn-out process, costly. And I'm not sure about how much power the federal government could exert. Could they force the power companies to shut down our grids in those states? Because some of the owners of these power companies, they're in league with the government, with the federal government. So that's possible. They could shut down the grid in these states and make it more difficult, make life more difficult, shut down trade, make it more difficult to get food and the necessities of life. I don't know. That'd be a tough one. It's one thing to survive, and one thing to survive while people are hunting you. UN forces are hunting you. So, I don't know, it'd be a good way to go out, fighting against oppression, fighting against authoritarianism, socialism. It'd be a good way to go out. I'll leave you there. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to become a member of Gen X Thinks, I'll put that link in the description. And you can also do it on the channel page after you subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, you can head over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I'll put that link in the description as well. If you're interested in Gen X gear, we've got a lot of cool stuff over there at Redbubble, Gen X Thinks, and Gen X branded stuff. Hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, all that kind of stuff. I'll put that link down in the description too. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out a lot. Thank you very much for those of you who do that. I sincerely appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Things, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email's over on the channel page. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.